Today, I'll be introducing a new series called the Set 5 Bootcamp for those who are sitting and waiting patiently for Set 5, the Reckoning, to come. I've decided to keep our skills fresh and sharp throughout this scary time. Today, I'll be talking about early game positioning, Small's guide to dominate early game with simple tactics and sneaky cheeses. So before I start with my presentation, I just want to start with explaining that you really need to scout in the early game. You can't be lazy, and you have to work for every single life points that is that you have, as it can make a difference between first, fourth, or eighth. Positioning early game is often very overlooked and can cause players a lot of trouble in the future. May this be a 5 win streak through stage 2, or may this be the difference between killing 3 to 4 units every round. And I'll explain many of these situations further on if you're interested in this PowerPoint. So, we're going to be talking about the first, foremost, most fundamental formation, the front and back formation. So, the front and back formation uses units that clearly define the front and back. The front line should be the tankiest ones, and the back line should have the most consistent DPS throughout the early game. In set 4, this would consist of front lines of brawlers or vanguards, and back lines of hunters from set 4 or sharpshooters and mages from set 4.5. Um, a lot of this consists of front and back fighting and avoiding assassins so they don't eliminate your early game DPS as soon as the fight begins. So, to look a little bit specifically on the front line, there's two situations you want to look at. Generally, front lines are positioned in front of your carries, but there are two different situations you want to look at. The first situation is when there are no potential dangers to your backline, i.e., assassins, and that way you're allowed to duo, triple, or solo frontline your vanguards or your frontline because there will be no danger to your carries. This way, it won't allow opponents to reach your background through sneaky mechanics or other ways. The other situation is when you drop back one of your front lines that have CC, for example, in set 4, the Wukong with its ultimate, you drop it back to intercept assassins. So this is a strategy used by many top challengers to intercept Dianas, interrupt Katarinas, and even Akali's. So you can see this in the bottom picture, although covered by my fish. The Wukong sits beside the sharpshooters to make sure assassins don't kill them early. Um, One special tip I can give you guys is that I often like pulling my first front line one space back. This gives your sharpshooters a little bit more time to hit their frontliners before their backline can hit yours. Just a preference on different types of style. You can maybe pick this up if you're interested or try this in your own game. Now to talk specifically on the backline, um, the most optimal position for backline is often grouped on the same side of the board. May this be left or right, it does not matter too much. The main idea of grouping it is to have them focus the same target and kill them as soon as possible without letting them use their ability multiple times in a fight. Uh, Another bonus is that they always still get to use aura item values, which is not a bad thing. But there are situations where you have to split up backline in your early game. So some situations can include multiple assassins in your lobby where they take both left and right side, and you have to gamble which side you want to take. Or there are large abilities that you need to avoid. For example, um, Timo blinds early in set 4. It went to the highest attack speed, and that would often mean your sharpshooters, so splitting up the sharpshooters would be very optimal when positioning your sharpshooters. Um, there is also a very small situation when you split your sharpshooters. you look to hit the weakest front line and kill that unit. If you know already that you're not going to win the round, killing one of the weaker front lines is just a bonus when having a good loss. Some bonus tips for future sets is that you have to really understand your backline to fully optimize them. For example, in set 4.5, we can look at our sharpshooters and we'll realize that Timo has a shorter range than the other sharpshooters. So it'd be more optimal to put him closer up than rather a Nidalee or a Tristana or a Sivir. We also learn throughout the set that sharp bounces prioritizes targets behind their initial target, which gives them, which allows like dual frontliners a little awkwardness, as their backliners will still get hit if you have sharp shooters. We also learned that Nidalee's alt damage increases with range, and that Sivir should be positioned around your other carries, as her attack speed steroid causes them to increase attack speed, of course. So the next thing we want to look at is the all frontline formation in a early game comp. So all frontline formation is kind of unique in its way that they have no backline access, and the way to the backline is through brute force and power. So I'll be looking at two different comps, specifically the divine comp and the brawler comp. So you will notice that in these comps, the main idea is through their strong front line, but a lot of their CC and AoE and tankiness revolves on their outside units. So for Divine, we look at Irelia and Jax. Irelia has an early 2.5 disarm spell at level 1, which is very important when changing the fights in early game. So it is very optimal to put her on the outside and in front of clumps so that she can get her ult as many times as possible. Same with Jax. Him on the outside allows him to absorb a lot of auto attacks from sharpshooters and any backline in general, as his dodge mechanics is very unique to him and his name. So, um, looking specifically at brawlers, brawlers don't have any too many unique mechanics, but we can notice in this image that both Maokai and Tom Kench will be on the outside. This is because uh, they have their unique abilities. For example, Maokai, if surrounded, can provide a large amount of CC in his slows and his damage. This is really important in changing a lot of the fights early game. And Tompkins, similar to Jax, although no dodge mechanics, he has a passive ability, Thick Skin, which allows him to take reduced damage uh, every auto. So it's just you need to know these small things when trying to win every fight. You'll notice that I put the main carries of the comp in the middle, for example, Shyvana, Nunu, and Vi, because these damage dealers will be able to basically free hits unless their backline is in the middle for some reason, but they'll be able to free hit on their front line while being able to generate their own ability mana. Having this free fire will eventually and most certainly change the fight in the early game 100% of the time. um, the next comp we look at is keepers. Um, keepers is a very simple comp, so I'll keep it simple. Um, you don't need to scout a lot for keepers, as the the abilities, the passive stats of keepers provides them very little potential for skill expression. Make sure your keeper shields stack, and the main idea of winning with keepers is making sure that they are in front of the enemy's backline. So after they melt the front line, they'll be able to easily access the other team's backline. So for example, in this picture, you want to frontline your Kennen, Jarvan, Elise, and Rakan because there's a chance that their shorter range backliners will be caught in the Kennen ults or Jarvan ults or Rakan stun. And with this, you can see that the back line will be damaged or even melted before the fight ends, which is a plus to your win status, right? When you eventually add other damage units, make sure that they fully utilize uh, the keeper shield. For example, Aatrox can be slotted in the top left beside a cannon, and like say Sivir or Kindred can be slotted underneath Jarvan, just to make sure that they fully utilize the stack keeper shield. For assassin is kind of the opposite of a keeper comp. Assassins often require all the scouting in the world, because if an assassin gets stuck on a tanky frontline unit, say like Annie, Garen, or like Braum, it can be an easy, surefire way to take 10 damage every round in stage 2. Um, when scouting, you want to look for loose units like sharpshooters, low level mages, and other units that you really want to get out of the fight before it gets long term. Um, you want to try and gamble. So playing assassin is also a gambling game because you can't always position on the same side without fully understanding who's your opponents. Of course, you can use basic knowledge of matchmaking, but it's always a gamble, as explained on the slide. Um, some tips I would provide to you is that you also want to avoid jumping on some of the stronger units that you can't burst down, as assassins often get stuck as mana batteries or mana generators for your opponents. For example, a chosen in lane, Janna, is not something you want to jump on if she has a blue buff, as your autos will generate her 4 shields for her opponents every 3 autos, and that way you will kill no one while having a very bad. Same with Lulu, specifically for mage cages. Uh, you want to try and find an opening and try and abuse it as an assassin early game. So, looking at more specific tips, there's a tip in Challenger called the Vi Tech, where when a challenger or when an opponent offsets their frontliner, you can put your strong units on the very edge. So usually that's Vi, Irelia, or Sejuani, where they can do a lot of AoE damage to your backline. So in this example, I try to fit a lot of information at once, but um, say, for example, Jarvan is the front line of this mage comp. You put Irelia tight to left, in which she'll walk up to the big clump of AoE keepers and provide them multiple ults of 1, 2, 3 disarms per fight. This way, they lose a lot of damage while you are able to sneak away with a lot of CC. Same with keepers and Vi. The strong ability power and base damage of a Vi on clumps is really important, and it doesn't always apply for clumps as well. You can use the Vi tech, um, which means like putting a strong unit on the side on any situation. So if they have a solo frontline Jax offsetted to the left, you can put maybe I don't know, Sejuani to the right, and she will walk straight up to their backline sharpshooters and provide a lot of CC towards them without fully aggroing the Jax. So that is the Vitek, and bringing it all together. Fundamentally, in set 5, we won't have the same units and the same abilities, but the main idea of positioning early game is to fully understand like your units. So for set 4, there are a lot of like standout units that many people use. For example, like Jax, Fiora, Tom Kench, and Garen are all very strong frontliners, but you have to wonder for yourself, like, why do we do this? And to break it down to like the first level is to understand fully their abilities. So Jax has a lot of built-in defense mechanisms for him. He has the define cleanse proc, and he has an AoE stun with the dodge mechanic included. So that's why a lot of people enjoy using Jax as a solo frontliner with the cultist variation, because of his ability to solo frontline and stun the enemies for a long period of time. Fiora, there was a time where reroll Fiora was very popular, but you never saw her solo frontline because she was very capable to be chain CC'd. Being chain CC'd as Fiora does not allow her to completely pop off with her skillful and timely riposte. And knowing her ability, a lot of people duo frontlined her with Jax or Yasuo even, because of the fact that she needs time to generate her own mana to start the chain going. Early on in set 4, when Brawler Ash was a big thing, Tom Kench with Sunfire was placed solo frontline while the Elderwood units stacked in the back. Now, why did people do that? It's because people realized that he had the tough skin mechanic, and Tom Kench was able to stall for a long period of time for the other units. So, and last but not least, Garen, my S plus plus unit, um, has a very strong ability where he gains MR while his spin does a significant amount of damage and to anyone that wraps around it. So, for example, if you were to poorly position your brawlers around this Garen, he would have a beautiful ultimate while your packline free fires at these brawlers. So, putting it all together, you just need to fully understand each early game unit and see how they interact with each other. Knowing this will help you position early game, see how far and close they should stand, and how each unit interacts with each other. But knowing all this together, I hope you understand like the three different situations and three different formations of an early game are. So front and back, keepers and assassins. And hopefully we can start our set 5 bootcamp together and smurf our way to Challenger. Thank you for listening. If you like my content, please like, comment what you think I should do next, and subscribe if you enjoyed. Thank you everyone for listening, and see you next time.